is getting in line with what God's doing in our writing. I want you to think of this as circles, okay? There's a lot of different ways I can describe these equations. We can describe them as levels of a pyramid, like a ziggurat. You can describe them as lenses. I like to think of them as circles. You know, the first circle is that first level of thinking. You know, it's a small circle, isn't it? Not everything fits in that circle. But when you get into that bigger equation, the hero zero, the self equation, it's better. I mean, some things fit in that. I mean, it's definitely true. We can't minimize our responses. Our responses are important. But when you think about this grace equation, this life equation, whatever you want to call it, I want you to think, I mean, this slide doesn't even, I mean, the circle is bigger than this slide when you think about God's grace. It's bigger than New Orleans. It's bigger than the earth. It's bigger than the expanding universe. Everything fits in the realm of God's grace. And so just realizing that today in your life, I just want to encourage you. How does grace change the circumstances? So often grace changes the way that we see our circumstances. You know, it's funny, the first level I talk about crying over spilt milk. Well, we know that God often, and God can often deliver us out of our circumstances. You know, we know those Red Sea experiences, but so often grace begins by changing the way that we see our experiences and giving us a different viewpoint in those writing challenges that we face. So once again, grace changes our circumstances, first of all, by helping us see the opportunities that we have to honor God. You know, by helping us to experience God in new ways. Last night I was meeting with a friend of mine that we haven't seen in 10 years. We don't come over here to Louisiana much. You know, Texas people, I'm scared to come over here in this swampland. Afraid I'm going to get thrown in one of these swamps and get eaten by an alligator, okay? But I was visiting with a friend last night. He's a pastor in Baton Rouge, and his wife went through an advanced stage breast cancer. And as we just kind of listened to them talk about their experiences, you know, and she's now 6 years out, and it looks like, man, she's going to be fine. But, you know, had to go through chemo, surgeries, and everything. And as they began to share that, Billy was talking about how he was talking to his sons, who were in junior high at the time, about what it was going to be like if Mama didn't live. What a conversation. You know, and through that process, he said, you know, I'm so thankful. I mean, I would never want to go through that experience again, but now that I have, I realize that I have come to know God in a deeper, more intimate way than I never would have been able to, even as a pastor, even as seeing people and counseling people through this cancer and through difficult life circumstances. I would never be able to understand that. And so, once again, thinking about the connection between your circumstances and what God is moving in your life to write and create. Just think about that this is an opportunity to honor God, to experience Him in new ways. It's an opportunity to grow spiritually. It's also an opportunity to influence other people. You know, it's funny, when we go through a difficult crisis in our life, like my building burned, when my building burned in this little small town in Nacogdoches, man, everybody, I mean, it was like everybody's eyes were on me. I had an opportunity, it was like an amplifier. Everybody was watching. And I just want to encourage you, whatever you're going through, whatever you're thinking, if you're writing a devotional, thinking about those experiences, those painful experiences, you begin to write and to begin to share. Those are the things that will connect with people when you're writing. How does grace change our ability to respond to our circumstances? Well, if you think about it, this response is a faith response. Now, every level of thinking has faith. The question is, what is the credibility of the faith in which things are placed upon? And so we know on this third level, this faith response is one of cooperation. Once again, God already has a plan for your writing. God already has a purpose for your writing. The question is will we respond to those circumstances that He places in our lives, and will we begin to make those steps and cooperate? It begins with acceptance. And then we accept the reality of where we are. It begins with acknowledging our inadequacy, right? Then we move to adjusting our lives to meet and to measure to what God's doing in our lives. And then we move to that point of anticipating what God may be doing. There is a sub-equation here, this response equation. There's a lot of sub-equations in this, but just thinking about that. Our response is one to cooperate with God in our circumstances. So, grace enhances, and I have the ease for a reason, grace enhances our responses. And that's how grace changes everything. I want you to think about your writing, and I'm going to share with you some personal examples of how I feel like God's grace has helped me to take those next steps. Grace equips us, grace enlightens us, grace energizes us,